Oh, hey. Question. Who likes picking really dumb fights? Cool. Well, it's been a while since Yanny Laurel, or white dress versus purple dress. And besides, if you are mathematically inclined, a nerd, if you will, fights that don't have to do with numbers and operations leave something to be desired. So let's sink our teeth into this. I promise, whatever you think might be the obvious solution to this equation, there is roughly half of the adult educated population that disagrees with you. Yes, there is. Because you can look at 8 divided by 2, brackets containing 2 plus 2. You can solve this, right? You know, basic order of operations. We know that we're going to solve inside the parentheses first, right? So we're going to make that a 4. Everybody agrees on that. Nobody disagrees on that. We haven't gotten to the contentious part yet. The contentious part comes now, at the next step. Do we do 8 divided by 2 and get 4, and multiply by 4 and get 16? Maybe. Half of you probably think that's, maybe more than half of you at this point, probably think that's the only correct answer that you can get from this equation. And that speaks volumes to when, where, how you were taught early algebra, okay? Because I promise you, there is a large contingent, a vocal minority, including myself, who looks at this problem and they get a completely different answer that is not 16. You wanna know why? Because what we're doing is we're solving inside the parentheses, as is the first step of PEMDAS, also known as BODMAS across the Atlantic, because these are the same thing. Parentheses or brackets, exponents or order. And then they flip the M and the D, multiplication, division, but that's fine, because it's understood that multiplication and division are equals. They're on one tier, okay? So if we look at this instead as a pyramid, we have P, E, M slash D, A slash S. Lowest priority, bottom of the pyramid. Increasing in priority as you go up. Okay, so you solve algebraic equations left to right, honoring PEMDAS. Okay, so these are priority groups. It's like when you're boarding a flight, priority seating. Group P gets to sit down first, then E, then M slash D, then A slash S, which you can also say S slash A. Doesn't matter. Addition and subtraction are grouped together in the bottom tier. Multiplication and division, or division and multiplication, are grouped together on the tier directly above that. So, we all agree that 2 plus 2 is 4. If not, then stop watching this video right now, because your brain will explode and you have some things that you need to work on. Okay, so go take care of that. Anyone that's still with me, 100% of us agree that 2 plus 2 equals 4. I would even deign to go so far as to say 110% of us agree that 2 plus 2 equals 4. Okay, no problems here. We all live harmoniously on that rock, hurtling through space, agreeing that 2 plus 2 equals 4, and that is a bedrock piece of knowledge that we can take blissful solace in. But here's where it all falls apart, because here's what we do, those of us who are taught the traditional interpretation of PEMDAS slash BODMAS. What we do is we don't look at 8 divided by 2 with a 4 in parentheses next to the 2. We don't look at that as, oh, now it's time to divide. We look at that as, now it's time to multiply. Okay, so get the hell out of here, new school. All I'm keeping is the 4. And what I'm doing is 2 times 4. right? So that's going to become an 8, because we know that a number inside the parentheses, number inside, once we've reduced this operation inside the parentheses to 4, we have a number to multiply times a number on the outside, that's 8. 8 divided by 8 equals what I consider the answer to be, which is 1. And I'm not just some crackpot, okay? This is not like a mathematical flat earth movement. Many people think it's 1, okay? Many esteemed mathematicians, academics, people with just as many degrees as the people who think it's 16, think it's 1. There is a divide, a rift, and it comes down to the fact that they changed the interpretation of PEMDAS. Okay, so for a period of time, in fact, I'm going to say the bulk of the 20th century, in the Western Hemisphere, in North America, to say the least, the majority of us were taught that priority, precedence, is given to implicit multiplication by juxtaposition. So if you have this 8 divided by 2 and then a parentheses and a number in the parentheses to multiply by that 2, you do that first before you skip back to going left to right with any additional M or D tier division or multiplication that may be on that line of equation. Okay, so multiplication, implicit multiplication by juxtaposition takes precedence, okay, over this whole bottom half of the pyramid. So this step is completed before the division. Now, to people who learned the modern interpretation of PEMDAS, of order of operations, that makes no sense, okay, because they stopped teaching that at some point after I was attending public school, but in this millennium. At some point, under what is now United States National Common Core mathematics, the modern interpretation is taught, where you do not give implicit preferential priority and precedence to implicit multiplication by juxtaposition. You just don't anymore. They don't teach. The children, the mathematicians of the future, are not being taught that step anymore. That is no longer the accepted interpretation. Problem is, there are many people, my age, older, a little bit younger, who had this drilled into their head. So when questions like this circulate on social media, you get bitter arguments from people who feel like this is a Mandela effect type of thing, or a case of gaslighting, or just incredulity that people could have gone through public education system and not be able to solve such a simple equation in a way that matches up with what they were taught. So there are some vehement disagreements. You would think that algebra is something that would not bring out the worst in us and cause people to want to dox each other, slash tires, threats of violence, but what am I saying? It's the internet, so literally anything can do that. But this is the one. This is the big reason to fight over math if you need one in your life. And the last thing that I want to say is that in the absence of any clear guidance on how to get two sides to agree, since fundamentally they cannot, because it comes down to being told that how you were educated in early childhood is wrong, and most people are not willing to do that. In the absence of any such guidance on how to bring us together in love of arithmetic and join hands and sing Kumbaya, I would just like to say that Team 16, you are very wrong. Good day. You'll pry my one out of my cold dead hands.